initializing. Okay. All right, so today, ready? We're going to be converting from rectangular to polar. I tried it. I switch it up all the time. All right, some key pieces of information. So you guys have these all written down? We're good? All right, let's try our first one. All right, so one of the biggest things that you guys want to make sure you do is you want to read the, you want to read the directions carefully. So I know I don't have any fancy directions here, but we are converting from rectangular to polar. Because the 2 points, when they're written down, they can look very familiar. They can look the same. So you want to read the instructions, and then I put an x comma y above it, so I know that I'm going from x comma y, and I want to get r comma theta. Okay? And the first thing that you guys do is you want to plot the point. So this is in our coordinate system, right? X comma y. So we want to plot it. You want to physically plot the point. So where would negative 6 comma 0 go? What axes is it going to end up on? The x, positive or negative? Okay, so it's somewhere over here. And you don't have to be exact. You want to know where it lives, okay? So negative 6 comma 0. So for these problems, you necessarily don't need to use the formulas, so to speak. You can find the radius pretty easy, because the radius is the length it is from the origin. So what would this length be?
6.
Just 6, right? You didn't need to do a formula. But if you wanted to use the formula, I'm just going to show you. Like, you always can still use it, but when you are dealing with negatives, they've got to go in parentheses. And you'd get 36 equals r squared, and then you'd get r equals 36. For this problem, you don't necessarily need to show it. I'm just showing you how you could always use it if you wanted to. Okay? All right, so next up, I'm going to just clean this up, is your angle. This is believe it or not, the harder thing that you got to be careful about, right? So if we set up tangent, right, tangent's going to be y divided by x. So now I say, okay, tan theta is y divided by x, right? And let's say you wanted to do the formula for it, tan theta 0 divided by negative 6. So let's say you guys went to your calculator, you hit second tan, right? You're going to get an angle, right? And you're actually going to get, you should get the reference angle of 0. And what you have to remember, this is the hardest part, is that when you guys do tangent, that's just your reference angle. You have to look at where you plotted it to see what the actual angle is. So now, on top of the blue, imagine your unit circle on top of the blue, right? This would be 0. That's pi over 2. And I'm working in radians because the first one asks for radians. It's just easier. You guys are used to it. Right? So here's 0, but where's our point?
On the other side.
On the other side, which is what angle?
Pi.
Pi. All right. So now we have our theta. Theta is pi. So you just have to write it as a coordinate, well, as a polar point, which would be r, comma, your theta. And that's your first answer. Now, for this problem, to be honest with you, you necessarily didn't need to use the formulas. You could look where you plotted it and say, oh, my r is 6, and because I'm on the negative x-axis, that's pi, okay? and that's okay. I'd rather have you not use the formulas. Like, if it falls on the axes, I wouldn't use the formulas. You know what I mean? Because like sometimes that confuses you. But you can physically just look and see, imagine, your unit circle like just on top of it. Okay. Now, a lot of times I do ask you to also then go to like degrees, right? And this is easy. You just use your knowledge. The 6 doesn't change. What is pi in degrees? How many degrees is pi? 180. There you go. Boom. Done. Oh my God, I forgot the parentheses. Whee! Let's keep going. Here we go for number 2. All right. So now this says, I don't know why it's number 1, but it should be number 2. It says change to polar degrees. So now we want to work in degrees. It does say round everything to the nearest 10. So we know that we're not going to be dealing with exact values, and you do want to make sure you use a calculator here because that means your tangent is going to be decimals, okay? And then there's this little added feature that says find a second point, and I'll explain that after, okay? All right, first thing you guys want to do, right, so this is x comma y, is you want to make sure you plot the point and create a right triangle. So first thing is plot it. Let's see where the point lives. Right, so where is negative 6, 5 going to live? What quadrant? 2. And you don't have to be exact. You're just going over like negative 6. I'm going up 5. I'm going to get a dot. And then you drop an altitude down, right? And that should be negative 6, 5. Right, so your x is along the x-axis. This is negative 6. That's 5. And now you want to find your r value, right? That's the hypotenuse of your right triangle. So you're going to use Pythagorean theorem to find the r. Right, so you have x squared. Just make sure you guys are using parentheses here. You never should get negative numbers. They should always be positive, okay? Because you are squaring that negative 6. So you should get 36 plus... Let me just get the notes. Which one? This is negative 6 and 5. You get the square root of like 61. You get 61 at first, right? So 61 equals r squared. But now we want to round this, though, to the nearest 10. So what is that going to give you guys? 7.8. So then I'm going to box it in. We'll write it as a point at the end, right? So you got your r. And now you just have to figure out your theta, right? So you want to remember the formula. Theta is tangent y divided by x. So tan theta is y divided by x. So tan theta it is better. What happens if you guys do, let's see, if you type 5, oh, you don't want to put the negative in here. It's going to give you like a weird angle that you're not going to be used to. So like when you're doing both formulas, if you want to drop the negative, you can. It doesn't affect it. All right, but I would drop it for tangent. Drop the negative. It's going to give you a negative angle if you don't. And you always want the positive because you want the reference angle, so you want the angle in the first quadrant. So once you type this in now, right, second tan, -1, 5 divided by 6. You're going to get, I'm going to write reference angle. I don't like to write theta here. What's your reference angle? Approximately to the nearest 10. We're going to round from the beginning. 39.8. Make sure you get that. If you don't, let me know. You all right? Okay, so now this is where, like, when I stressed you guys about learning how to plot these points, is now you have to look here because that's your reference angle. But where did we plot the point? What quadrant? The second. So now you're like, oh crap, I need a theta in the second quadrant. Okay, so I need an angle in the second. So you're gonna need this little thing will help you guys. So like you get your reference angle. To find the second quadrant, you fun stuff. Does anyone remember what you would do with the reference angle for second quadrant?
I think you would minus by 180.
Good job. So you do 180 minus the reference angle, and that's going to give you your second quadrant angle. Third quadrant, you do 180 plus the reference angle. And what do you guys think you would do in the fourth? What would you use? 360. And this will get you your, that's an F. Looks like a T. Sorry. Right? And this will give you guys your theta. This is how you find your thetas. So like here we have 39.8, but we want a second quadrant angle, so I just do 180 minus 39.8, and now this will be my actual theta, which will be 140.2. And then you have to write it as a pair for the final answer. So like you would just piece them together, 7.8, comma 140.2 degrees, right? Are you guys okay? I don't even know if I want to do find the second point today. All right. So to find a second point, Sebastian, right? This ties in what you guys were just doing, where we were plotting and renaming the points. Okay. So to find a second point of the same name, and I always restrict your domain to keep it within the 360. We're going to shoot through to the other side, and we're going to come over here, and we're just going to do the negative pole value. So you're going to change this to negative 7.8. And we're going to find out what's the angle in the fourth quadrant now. Right? So now you could use your chart and be like, oh, there's a couple different ways you can find it, and I'd rather keep it simple for you guys right now, is you could just do 360, right? 360 minus our reference angle that you guys got, the 39.8. And what is that going to give you guys? You got me, Tyler? Tyler? Oh my God, I'm making up names.
Just a question. Would adding 180 be I can agree that also?
Yeah, very good. That's the other way.
320.
320. Thank you for picking that up. So there's obviously a couple different ways you guys can do it. You can use your 360, or like Tyler was asking, let me use green, is if you're going from the blue to the green, you're just increasing by pi, or 180, because we're in degree mode here. So this forms a line, so you can just add 180 to this, and you'll get your 320.2. Okay? And then that's your 2 points. Okay? So we're tying everything in. Everything you guys have done. All right, so We want to change to polar radians now, polar radians. Right, so polar radians. We'll deal with the we'll deal with the radians at the end. And then it says round everything to the nearest 10. All right, so we start off again, right? You're going to plot your point. You notice that what quadrant is the point going to be in? The first quadrant, so this is kind of nice, right? So I have square root of 2 goes over, and then you'd go up, square root of 3, right? So you have square root of 2 and square root of 3. So now you just got to find your r, which is going to be your Pythagorean theorem, right? Your r value. Make sure you use parentheses, that will help you, right? It's going to be square root of 2 squared plus square root of 3 squared equals r squared. Okay, so take your time, find that out. Or I can show you the shortcut. Okay, and then so you'll get r equals the square root of 5, but we want to the nearest 10th. So that should be 2.2. Okay, so we got our r value. Now you just got to figure out your theta, right? So this is easy because it's the first quadrant. So this is kind of nice. Y divided by x. Okay. And then you'll get an angle of second tan. Okay, now the nice thing is, because we're in the first quadrant, you don't have to worry about like subtracting anything, doing anything. Casper, you want to move to the front? You okay? Okay, so what do you guys get here when you type it in, Sebastian? Oh, yeah. Come on, you're gonna... Okay, so to go from degrees to radians, you want to keep that full decimal in the calculator. So like, I'm just going to pull the calculator up as well. Now, some of you might be like, can I just change my calculator to radian mode? Yes. Just have to remember to change it back. That's the hard part. But if you practice it enough, you might be good at it and then be like, I'll just do that. You know, that's up to you guys. So I'm in degree, right? So I hit second. Tan, what do we got? Square root of 3. Oh, I did it the old-fashioned way. I didn't do the alpha y equals, you know, the nicer looking way, right? Square root of 3 over the square root of 2. Hit enter. Now keep that decimal, just times it by pi divided by 180. The reason, oh, all right, now you should get this weird decimal, okay? So you get 0.8, not weird, you just get a decimal. 0.886 approximately. So theta okay, and we wanted it rounded to the nearest 10th, so this would be 0.9. So now we get 2.2 and 0.9, and that's your first point. Okay, now, since we're working in radians, now we want to find that second point, so I draw like a dashed line. I'm going to be over here in the third quadrant. So I negate the r value, and this is where I would use his technique of adding pi, because it makes it a lot easier, especially here in radian land. So going from here to here, you would just add pi, and you could use your calculator. You have the pi symbol. if you didn't want to use the calculator, you would just use 3.1 approximately. You know what I mean? You're just adding it to it. You're going to get 4.0. You want to fill in that tenth spot because they did tell you to round to the tenths. Okay? All right.